Hello, I'm Bob Lozier, broadcaster and national journalist, and with me today is Dr. B. Baker, a therapist from Northern California. She'll be asking some of the questions of our guest today, and that is Bob Barefoot, author of this book, The Disease Conspiracy, the FDA Suppression of Cures. And let me tell you, some people still think, Bob, that you're in jail. I know the FTC went after you several years ago after your infomercial originally. But yet here you are with us today. You're prouder than ever, and you've got a lot to say.
And a lot of those people think I'm dead as well.
Well, my question is, you survived, and my assumption is part of that was coral calcium, part of it vitamin D, and part of the fact you believe in what you're saying.
That's absolutely true. It wasn't easy surviving, but I managed to do that. And what happened was I went on the air with a fellow called Kevin Trudeau, and we talked about nutrition and disease, and the FTC took offense, and they accused me of 6 claims that I never made. However, when the FTC accused you of claims, that's it, game over. My lawyer said millions of dollars, you'll lose because it's pre-decided. He says, then if you spend another millions of dollars, you'll win because the real courts will see that you are an innocent man. Now, we had 3 independent consulting groups all review the tapes and say, you didn't say one of the things you're accused of. So the FTC then came back and says, well, you didn't say them, but you implied them. So it's a no-win situation. No matter what you do, they've got you. And the irony is I didn't make any of the claims. My basic claim is that the scientific community is unanimous in saying that calcium mineral supplements do indeed prevent disease. And unfortunately for me, when people say, well, what's the best form of calcium? I tell them coral calcium, Okinawa, Japan, and that's where I get into trouble.
Well, if you get into trouble with the Federal Trade Commission and the Food and Drug Administration, and apparently many politicians, perhaps you're doing a few things right out there. It seems to me that you've got to raise the awareness of this, or no one will know how much your research could mean to Americans and people all over the world.
Well, that's exactly right. You see, I'm a scientist and I read thousands of publications. And I'm reading in these publications, guess what? Vitamin D terminates cancer. Guess what? Calcium supplements reverse cancer, lupus, MS, and the public don't hear of it. The public doesn't hear of it because the FDA are owned by the drug industry. They get all their money from the drug industry, and the drug industry stands to lose hundreds of billions of dollars if you start to understand that 50 cents worth of vitamins can cure you instead of $5,000 worth of drugs. They don't want you to know, and that's what happens. The FDA suppresses the knowledge of the cure of diseases.
Dr. Baker, you had a question.
Yeah, you got that right. You talked about dedicating this book to Oprah, and then you said something about people talking to the movie actors and
Yes.
people like that. Okay, what makes you think that Oprah and all of these other movie actors and folks care anything about Black America, Hispanic America, or Indian America?
Oh boy. Well, first I have to tell you that most of my cherished friends are Black Americans, and when their children play with my children, I'm sick. My heart is just sick. Because the scientific studies show that the Black American children are going to have lupus, MS, cancer, diabetes, probably before the age of 40, and my children aren't. And there's something wrong with that.
Okay, but what makes you think that I mean, why Oprah and these people?
Well, because the drug industry is so powerful. I mean, they own Congress. They have 1,200 lobbyists, and they're usually ex-congressmen and senators, and they outnumber our congressmen 3 to 1. They spend billions and billions of dollars on propaganda that vitamins are bad for you. We can't fight that. To fight that, it takes a power, and public opinion is one of the greatest powers, and Oprah Winfrey people listen to.
That is not going to make her ratings go up. That is not going to make these people popular. You know, I mean, all of these things, and I'm asking these questions from the heart because...
For 2 reasons I disagree. First off, I'm not just talking about raising Oprah's ratings. I'm talking about giving her 40 years more life. I'm talking about preventing her from getting sick, and she's going to want all that. And when she realizes that her children and her grandchildren can do this, if she just takes the first step, she will save millions of lives. Now, does Oprah want to save millions of lives? I think she does. I think that'll make her ratings skyrocket through the roof. She could be the leader in curing America.
Okay.
You really think that she will have you on her show one of these days?
I'm sure, hoping so, because she's probably the best spokesperson for the white community. The black community say they don't listen to her, but the whites all listen to her. My wife does, my mother-in-law does. My goodness, she's powerful.
Do you think that maybe some of these shows don't put you on because of your affiliation with Kevin Trudeau and the fact that many stations don't air infomercials that include Kevin?
Yes, that's true. Unfortunately for Kevin Trudeau, he's got a fight with the FTC and the FDA, and I endorse his fight. However, they're so powerful that they've terrified these stations into not airing his infomercials. However, who's winning the war? Kevin walks away with hundreds of millions. What do these little guys get? 20,000 a month?
I'm wondering, you were talking before we came out here today, and you were talking about one of the national media, a national TV network, a cable network, in fact, that said, okay, we've seen in a big study the benefits of coral calcium, the benefits of vitamin D. Yet the next day, that story was not even on the air.
Yeah, and the hottest story was December 29th, 2005, that's just 6 months ago, CNN, the lead story of the day. Vitamin D reduces cancer by over 50%. Wow, that's got to be the hottest story of the century. The hottest story. Very next day, it's gone, disappeared.
A stimulating conversation today, and it's all about this book. It's called The Disease Conspiracy, the FDA Suppression of Cures. This will give you the kind of information that you need to know about calcium, about vitamin D, about what we're doing to ourselves in this country. The toll-free number is up. I encourage you to read the book. Wow. When we think of calcium, we think of the kind that we've taken for many years. But coral calcium, which the Okinawans use in the Sea of Japan, they've had tremendous benefits from that. Why does that work so much better than the standard version?
Well, for the longest time, all we knew was that it had 800 years of track record, that there were hundreds of millions of people taking, and millions of people say it's cured this, cured that. I've had thousands of Americans tell me how it cured their ailments. And then we had to say, well, why? Well, the first thing we know is that it's calcium. And that we know that all the people in the world that live long and are disease-free have the common denominator that they all consume 50 times the calcium that we consume. Huge amounts of calcium, and they all have vitamin D from the sun. They all are in the sun for 7-10 hours a day, and that's the common denominator.
Okay, you said all 4 times, all right?
Okay.
All, okay.
And as soon as I said
all of these people, okay?
All is not really the term that you want to use there.
Well, what we're saying is, in general, the majority of these people are 7 hours in the sun. I'm sure not all of them, but the majority of them are. And also the majority of them will tell you, I drink goat's milk every day. Maybe not cow's milk. Goat's milk's more popular in most of these other countries. So we know that's common enough. And the other thing is, by default, they all have to drink water. And their water comes from melting glaciers, and it's turbid, it's white, and it has 18,000 milligrams of calcium, 18 times the calcium that a quart of milk has, and they drink 5 quarts a day. So that's like having 100 quarts of milk a day. Who's going to drink 100 quarts of milk a day? But that's the amount of calcium that they get, and they suffer the consequence of no disease, no doctors, and long life. We got to change this. We can't sit back and do nothing, especially when we have Nobel Prize winners telling us we can end it now. I'm listening to the Nobel Prize winners. I'm listening to the scientists.
Okay, some people would think, you know, since I'm back to Oprah. Okay, some people would think that you dedicated this to her because of the, you know, you could probably get on her book club or something like that, and you could make millions and billions of dollars. Okay, so, you know, is that the reason, or what is your heart? I mean, you know, where are you really coming from?
I have made millions of dollars in the mining industry, millions of dollars in the oil industry, millions of dollars in the... I'm not in this for the money. I want Oprah to save your children and my children. I'm here to save the children of America and the people of America. But Black America first, because they have 3 times the cancer, 5 times the kidney disease. They have diseases we haven't even heard of, like sickle cell anemia.
What about the Hispanics and the American Indians?
Well, the Hispanics, they got 40% more disease than we have, and therein lies the real problem. Look, I have a good friend, and he's a black minister, a man of the cloth, and he says to me, Bob, I have one question for you. He says, if we reverse the situation, You see, black Americans die 6 years before white Americans. Black Americans have 3 times the cancer. And he said, if we reverse it and we have white America dying 6 years before blacks and white American with 3 times the cancer of blacks, what would happen? I said, that's easy. All these government agencies would spend hundreds of billions of dollars to find out why and rectify the situation. And he said to me, exactly. Therein lies my question. I'm black and you won't spend a dime on me. What about the Hispanics? I said, they're sick too and they don't spend a dime on Hispanics. I says, you got to be white if they're going to spend money. And he says, well, then I call that racial discrimination of the worst kind. And you know that it's caused the lives of millions of black Americans. We've died needlessly. I said, yes, Otto Warburg, and he's a 2-time Nobel Prize winner. He said that we know what causes cancer and we know how to cure cancer. And he came to America and said, look, we know how to cure it. We know what causes it. He says, but unfortunately, because of your agnostics in your government agencies like the FDA and the FTC, these godless men, millions of Americans are going to have to die needlessly. Now, since he said that, 25 million Americans have died. John Wayne didn't have to die. Steve McQueen didn't have to die. Jerry Orbach didn't have to die. Your mother didn't have to die. We could institute a cure for her, according to Dr. Warburg, and I know it's right because I've witnessed it.
I'd say this book has the answers. We're interrogating Bob Barefoot today on this book, The Disease Conspiracy, the FDA Suppression of Cures. And Bob Barefoot pulls no punches in the book. Calcium, vitamin D, all the minerals and nutrients that you need, when to take them and how to take them. They're in this book. I encourage you to read it.
I do like the fact that you have a lot of research information in there, and people are being provoked today. I mean, I'm here to really provoke people to get the book, to do their own research. They have that opportunity. I mean, and they're responsible too, you know, to be able to do some of these things.
Yes, and the other thing is, in the book, I give you hundreds of scientific references. Every one of these scientists, from the Mayo Clinic, from the University of Chicago, from the University of Tokyo, from the University of Bern, Switzerland, every single one of them are claiming that vitamins and minerals do indeed reverse disease. For example here, I'll have to read it because these Japanese have such funny names. Dr. Yuri Horido says that coral calcium inhibits cancer. And he's from the University of Tokyo. The University of Harvard Medical Faculty, Dr. Cam Wu, says high calcium consumption is associated with a reduced risk of cancer. And this one, Dr. Fen Yang, in December '04, he's from a Harvard Medical School, he says that vitamin D terminates the cancer telomere, resulting in the immediate death of cancer. Vitamin D kills cancer. Now, look at the credentials, look where they're from, and then tell me that the medical community isn't saying the same thing that I am. All I'm doing is reiterating what these people are saying, and there are thousands of them. My book, I give you 200. I have 2,000 back in the office, and my cohorts here are pulling in 50 more a day. Wherever you go, and that's what you should do, get the people to read, and they'll see the scientific community is unanimous. We can cure America. We don't have to buy drugs.
Okay, they're going to say your specialist, I mean your research and other people's research. You know how it is. You know, there's 2 separate researches. What makes yours in this? I mean, what makes these people more qualified than the ones that are trying to poo-poo this?
Well, the drug industries, they spend hundreds of millions on drugs, right? Mm-hmm. But did you know for every penny they spend on drugs, they pocket $1,000? Mm-hmm. Do you know what the markup for drugs is? 800-fold, according to a study done for the President of the United States. In other words, if a drug costs 50 cents, it's sold for $400. Now, President Clinton called that price gouging. But I think an 80,000% markup is extortion. I think it's criminal, and I think they should all be put in jail. But you can't do that because half the president's staff would be in jail. So this is impossible to do.
Aren't there a lot of misconceptions about, say, sunlight for one thing? That if we're out in the sun very long, oh, that's absolutely dangerous to us.
I come from the state of Arizona where we got lots of sun, and people get skin cancer. The white albino from Detroit, the white albino from New York, but not the people of Arizona. As a matter of fact, on the skin cancer list, we're way down. All the northern states like New York, Oregon, Washington, they all got a lot more skin cancer than we do. And as a matter of fact, the whole northern states have over 2.5 times as much cancer as the southern states. And then we take black America. They avoid the sun like the plague. And they got 3 times the cancer. And yet if you go to Africa where they're bathing in the sun all day long, cancer is virtually unknown. So wherever we go, wherever there's sun, there's no cancer. The sun prevents all cancers, and it does it, as the scientist says, you produce tons of vitamin D. The vitamin D terminates the telomere, terminates the cancer. The vitamin D also allows you to absorb calcium, which raises your pH, which floods your body with oxygen. Otto Warburg said that oxygen will terminate the cancer. We know exactly why it works. The sun prevents cancer. God knew what he was doing. The AMA is wrong.
You also make an interesting claim in this book about cholesterol. The fact that that causes heart disease, and that if you don't take cholesterol-blocking drugs, you will be in trouble. Where is that wrong to your way of thinking?
One thing I know about cholesterol-blocking drugs, they're piggyback drugs. If you take them, you'll have so many symptoms, you'll have to take 10 other drugs. And the drug industry loves piggyback drugs. But the point is, Dr. Kilmer McCulley, he's the Dean of Medicine, University of New York, made the discovery that cholesterol has nothing to do with heart disease. He said it was acid chewing up the artery wall that caused heart disease, and he proved it. And on top of that, he's being nominated for a Nobel Prize, they say. And on top of that, what happens, he says, is that when the acid chews up the artery, in order to save your life, the body reacts, and the cholesterol comes by and hardens it to prevent it from bursting. The cholesterol was there to save your life, not to cause heart disease, and it didn't cause heart disease. Now, the acid comes from the lack of calcium, because you don't drink your milk. You have no source of calcium. The cultures in the world that live the longest all eat 50 to 100 times as much calcium as you do, and they have virtually no heart disease, no cancer, no lupus, no MS, and that's the common denominator.
Okay, most books that you read, that you go ahead and you purchase, whatever, they don't tell you, we give information on an infomercial or something, but does your book really, will your book help a person to be able to follow some steps on something?
Oh, yes, exactly. I mean, this book tells it all as it is. This book tells you you've got to have your calcium. The blacks, for example, have melanin in their skin, which is a natural skin block. Boy, if they could get that out, they'd make billions off of it, but they can't duplicate it yet. The bottom line is it prevents the production of vitamin D. A white person in the sun for 15 minutes gets more vitamin D than a black person for 10 hours. So you have to have vitamin D supplements if you're going to survive.
Well, God made us that way, so that's the way.
Unfortunately, but
the good part.
This book tells the black community that the reason that you die 6 years, the reason you're so sick is because you cannot avoid the sun. If I took a flower out of the sun, it would die. If I take a black woman out of the sun, she'll die for the same reasons. You've got to get back in the sun. My goal is to have all the black women in bikinis on the beach. Trust me, that will work, along with vitamin D supplements, along with calcium supplementation. All you need is calcium, vitamin D, and you can change everything. Add years to your life and eliminate disease, according to the scientists of the world.
Okay, I disagree with you for one thing. Black kids, I mean, I know my grandchildren, I know a whole lot of black people, and they're always at the beach. I mean, so the younger generation of black people, they are in the sun. Maybe my generation of the 60s and up or whatever, we're too busy to get in the sun, but they, younger people are out there and they're getting that. They're getting that sun.
Unfortunately, I also think it's because the black people have had to have the menial jobs. They're usually inside jobs, in buildings, cleaning up. They never see the sun because of the jobs that they have to have. But whatever the reason, the bottom line is that black America doesn't get the sun that white America does, and white America has half the cancer. And white America has 1/5 the kidney disease. And that's unfortunate.
And the diabetes and all of those things.
If that's the case, why don't we reverse it? Why don't we get the blacks in the sun? Why don't we give them vitamin D? And why don't we give them calcium supplementation? Because we know it works. And you know what? It doesn't cost anything. We're not talking about the $5,000 drug.
A stimulating conversation today, and it's all about this book. It's called The Disease Conspiracy, the FDA Suppression of Cures. This will give you the kind of information that you need to know about calcium, about vitamin D, about what we're doing to ourselves in this country. The toll-free number is up. I encourage you to read the book.
Do you know people think that you're crazy? They think you're a quack. They think that you're, all of these.
First off, I hope they think I'm a quack, because the history taught us that all the people you thought were quacks are the greatest people of all time. Do you know Albert Einstein was the quack when he came up with the theory of relativity? He was such a quack that 100 scientists got together and he wrote an article, said 100 against Albert Einstein, because his theory of relativity was so silly. Albert Einstein stood up in the audience and says, well, you know, gentlemen, if you were right, you don't need 100, you only need one. So now also,
I'm pretty sure the Earth is still flat too. I'm not. Yeah.
Also, when you look at the history, Dalton, he had the theory that everything was made up of atoms. They called him the quack of quacks.
Right.
In fact, every time you look at who they call quack, they're now our heroes. So please call me quack.
Okay, I know that, I mean, I've traveled all over. I've traveled to Africa and Mexico and different places like that. And those people are in the sun a lot. You say in your book that because we blacks and Hispanics and Indians that are here in America, because we don't get as much sun, then we're in jeopardy.
Northern states have over twice the cancer of the southern states. Blacks don't sunbathe. They have 3 times the cancer.
They have to work.
But the blacks in Africa, they're naked on the beach and they're beautiful, and the one thing they don't have is cancer is missing. The bottom line is, and then you have the scientists explaining why. They say that the vitamin D breaks down the cancer telomere, it kills the cancer instantly. They also say that the vitamin D allows you to absorb 20 times as much calcium, which floods your body with oxygen, and Otto Warburg said that oxygen will terminate the cancer. So we not only know that the sun prevents cancer, we know that it totally eliminates cancer.
Okay, so what you're saying, I mean, I want to make sure I'm hearing this correctly. Vitamin D, calcium, these types of things, since there are many black and Hispanic and Indian people that work inside, that have to do work inside. So you're telling me that with the sun that they can get and then doing some of these things, that this is going to help them?
Well, of course, the sun just doesn't give them vitamin D. It gives them the hormones they need to survive. When you're in the sun, you produce calcitonin and melatonin and serotonin and inositol triphosphate. You produce 100 chemicals, all of which keep you young, healthy, and sexy. So you want to be in the sun. If you take a plant out of the sun, it dies. People die for the same reason. God knew what he was doing. He gave us the sun, said put the plants in the sun, but stay with them.
Are there some similarities between drugs and nutrients that if we took, you know, there are a lot of people out there who I would say will say, look, I'm taking a lot of prescriptions. I know I have to have these drugs to survive. And yes, I'll take your nutrients too. What are you telling those people? Drop the drugs entirely?
I never say right away, but the answer is yes. I tell them that the big difference is nutrients are natural. God made them. Trust God. Drugs are man-made and have a track record of killing hundreds of thousands of people every year. Something like 600,000 people died last year because of drug complications. Not one died from calcium. And I'm saying, listen to God. Follow God. Don't follow the drug industry masters.
But you're not a doctor. That's the first thing they're going to say. You're not a doctor. These people are doctors.
Yeah, but thank goodness I'm not a doctor, because doctors have no education in nutrition. Doctors aren't allowed to be trained. The FDA will not allow any training for doctors on nutrition because it's natural, and a doctor that knows nutrients won't prescribe drugs.
Okay. This book
Yes.
is controversial in the first place. It's going to provoke people to either think and make changes, or it's just going to make them angry. What did you do in this book that's different from all these other books that people write, and then you read it and it's like, you know, having a letdown? You know, it's like really looking for a big night and you think you're going to have it, then all of a sudden it's a dud. You know?
The answer is quite simple. All the other books don't have the solution. This one does. And the solution, as you say, is so simple, how can it be viable? But it is a viable solution. All the others don't have solution. This one does. This one has explanation. This one is the opinion of thousands of scientists. Bob Barefoot's just telling you what they're saying. So therefore, I hope you're let down. But what the book will do is, when you listen, and many will, I will guarantee you thousands will go out there and do it. And we will have saved thousands of lives.
Okay, so you're telling me that this is solution-oriented rather than going, and you know how many times here it is, people talk about all the problems, but very rarely do you find someone that's solution-oriented. So
this is a solution to prevent black Americans from dying young, from having so much disease. This is the solution. It's also a solution for white America. This is a solution to show us how we can live to be 120 with the body of a 50-year-old. This is a solution.
Okay, for Hispanics and
Doesn't matter whether you're
Indian people too.
Hispanic and
it
you're
doesn't matter.
Indian.
So you're okay. So what I'm hearing, and this sounds kind of scary, that the American people are like sheep going to the slaughter of disease without some changes.
Yes, they are extremely brainwashed by the people with the money, the drug industry. They believe everything they tell them. They believe salt is bad for you when all the scientific studies show it extends your life and prevents heart disease.
Cholesterol is bad.
Cholesterol is bad for you. Butter's bad for you. But anything God made was bad for you, but buy the drug. I mean, my goodness. What I'm trying to tell America is we've got to get back to the basics. If God made it, it was for a reason.
This is the book that's causing the controversy and also causing a lot of people to get a whole lot better. The Disease Conspiracy, the FDA Suppression of Cures by Bob Barefoot. I encourage you to call the toll-free number. Get a hold of this book. It will shed a whole lot of light on your entire life.
Read the book, The Disease Conspiracy. It has the answers in it for you. You don't have to listen to me. Read what the scientific community is saying. They can give you the answers. We can cure America.
Any one point you would like to leave us with that perhaps we haven't covered enough in our discussions?
Your last words of wisdom.
Oh, my last words of wisdom are basically, when it comes to the book, The Disease Conspiracy, there's enough information in there to provoke you to look ahead and to look out. The solutions that are giving in there are not costly. You're talking pennies per day to turn your life around, to save your life. And what you're talking about here is blacks should be living 6 years longer than the whites. This can do it for a few pennies a day. Blacks shouldn't have 3 times the cancer. This can do it for a few pennies a day. The book has the solutions, and all I want to get to the people, plus it has enough information to provoke you. Because when you see the doctor that says that this cures this, and he comes from the Mayo Clinic, or that he's the Dean of Medicine, University of New York, you're going to say, these guys got credentials. For Pete's sakes, why aren't we hearing about it? And the answer is, the FDA suppresses cures.
Bob, thank you so much for being our guest today. I'd say this book has the answers. We're interrogating Bob Barefoot today on this book, The Disease Conspiracy, the FDA Suppression of Cures. And Bob Barefoot pulls no punches in the book. Calcium, vitamin D, all the minerals and nutrients that you need, when to take them and how to take them. They're in this book. I encourage you to read it.